the meeting to order. Pledge to the flag. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brew,
Here.
Mr. Babalani,
Here.
Dr. Hayes.
Here.
Mr. Menegini.
Here.
Mr. Pop.
Approval of minutes for the regular meeting of July 5th, 2016. Any additions or corrections? If not, we need a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll make a motion we approve minutes regular meeting of July 5th, 2016.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Babalani,
Yes.
Dr. Hayes.
Yes.
Mr. Menegini.
Yes.
Mr. Pop.
Yes.
Mrs. Brew.
Yes.
Approval of manifest 2016-13 in the amount of $287,929.69. Mr. Pop, any questions?
No, I'm good.
I have one. On 1 of 9, where it says Department 101, was that an error? It says Mayor, Council, Elections.
No, that's this is the description. It's what's in there.
So grass cutting comes out of that?
Yeah, we charge that off to the property maintenance. We go under that. That's where we budgeted it.
Okay.
Any other questions? Mr. Babalani, any questions?
Yes, I have a couple, Doc. Ray, I noticed on the second page, the vehicle gas, under the Public Works and the Water Department, last month we used up $1,045.85 in the DPW, and in the Water Department we had $410. That's $1,456, just gas, not diesel fuel, in 1 month. And with a 20-day work deal for the month, $73 a month, or $73 a day we're using in gasoline.
Well, I did, you brought that up before. I went back and checked, and like through May and June, a lot of that gasoline is going in with the lawnmowers, because it's all charged, it's all being utilized, it's not just the trucks.
Well, the Parks and Recs, I thought that's where the gas for the lawnmower would probably be. That was $140. I
Yeah,
know
it's
that's
not
probably
all-
Kurt's vehicle,
Yeah.
plus the lawnmowers?
Yeah, it doesn't all get charged to Parks and Rec, because we have a lot of facilities that get the grass cut, and it depends on, how it's charged. I mean, some of that may or should probably go to Parks and Rec, but when it comes in and Lisa gets the bills, unless it's clearly defined, probably going into one pot. I don't know, Mary, if you got that.
We'd probably have to look at if they've got, usually they have the equipment number on there, so we know if it's Parks and Rec versus Public Works, but we'd probably have to look at them and see if any of that's in Public Works should be for the mowers or.
I mean, $73 a day, when I know they were working out at the park quite a bit this last month with the tennis courts and the festival, and they were using a lot of the diesel trucks, and I just think that that's extremely high for some reason. So I'd like that checked. The central membership dues under it says training, it's right under the mayors and council for $569. What is that, Ray? Central Upper Peninsula membership dues.
Is that QPAD?
Yep.
Yeah, that's our annual dues for QPAD. That's
Okay.
the planning group, QPAD.
On the second page, about halfway down, we had $90 to haul the excavator to the tennis court project. I thought we had our own trailer for that thing. We used to have a equipment trailer that we used to haul that and the bulldozer on.
I'll check.
And then I noticed We've been doing a lot with Danielson's greenhouse between lawn maintenance and flowers, but we had 1750 in lawns and 870 in flowers, and we only had $220 at the garden place. I don't know if that could be spread a little equally.
That's through the DDA?
That's the, okay.
Yeah, they do try to spread that, so I know that
A
they
lot
do
of the
it equally.
Danielson charge, isn't that for cutting grass that's overgrown too?
Yeah, well, yeah, we do use Danielson's for that.
Right, 'cause
Well,
they-
just the flowers were 870 at Danielson's and 220 at the garden place.
Yeah, there were some previous bills to that too, though, so, from the garden place. So
Okay,
It's just that there was a delayed receipt of the billing.
okay, that's all I got.
Mr. Menegini.
Under mayor council elections, just curiosity more than anything, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 places there where we hired Danielson's to cut the grass they were in violation. Are they the only ones that we do business with as far as when we have to hire somebody, Ray? I don't know if there's anybody else out there actually that,
We have advertised that in the past. They're the ones that are insured. We've had some issues with insurance.
We used to have Becca Ornamental, didn't we? Do
Yeah,
some of it?
he's, we went with Danielson's because they were a little less expensive.
okay, I just
And they
curious.
were, they jump on it, when we ask them, they jump on
Oh,
it, so.
okay. I'll
John
just,
does a good job, but he's, sometimes a little busy and he's out of
right,
town.
I know exactly what you mean there. That's all I had. The rest of the questions were asked by Mark there.
I have no additional questions, so we need a motion to approve the manifest.
I make a motion, we approve manifest 2016-13 in the amount of $287,929.69.
Support.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Anybody in the audience like to have any questions on any agenda item tonight? There'll be time at the end of the meeting for questions on any other matters. Next, a presentation by Phil Hansen for WPPI Energy.
I'm Phil Hansen with WPPI Energy. I'm the Chief Information Officer for WPPI, and I work with member utilities a lot on their billing system, the Northstar billing system, and also work on advanced metering projects quite a bit with members. Ray asked me to come here and talk a little bit about Northstar and how it fits in Norway and your project, and also just a little bit about Northstar in
in an older community, do you actually benefit from that? I mean, do you really think that the older clientele is gonna get up in the middle of the night and use their energy soaking equipment then? I mean,
It really depends how you structure your rate. Structure the hours so they're not deep into the night where the off-peak are. And like I said, it's not balanced out to be punitive to anyone. It's balanced out to encourage energy efficiency. So even simple things like cooling your house a little bit in the morning can make some impact on that. I did an analysis for another community, Whitehall, on this. And under the rate proposed, they're a similar community, I would say, to Norway. A lot of older citizens there. 60% or 70% of the people in that range benefited from the new rate. A lot of it, when we did the study, was older people that use less electricity, actually came a better upgrade than we expected. It was surprising.
but I mean, the time of use rate, I mean, do you really think the older people use that?
Like I said, some will benefit from it, some may not. The study we did was no one changed their habits. Even on that rate, people actually save money because of how their normal appliances work. They may have a dehumidifier that you can put on a timer. So really no change in lifestyle other than running that dehumidifier at night. You could change your electricity bill quite a bit. But there are some that may not benefit as much as others. Something that I think is going to become more prevalent with solar. We're going to see more of those kind of use rates. The system in place, it doesn't say you have to ever move to that, but it gives you the option. It gives you the ability to at least analyze it with advanced metering, to at least analyze how that impacts all of your customers. That's the nice thing about having all that information. Like all they had, we have about 900 customers. We analyzed every one of them to see exactly how that rate would impact their bill. We discussed that with the utility and the citizens before talking about implementing it. And there it was optional, so when people didn't want to be on impact. Some of the other projects going on, well, advanced metering is a big thing. We have 20 members right now installing or will install advanced metering. Two of those members have pilots going on where they're providing websites where the users can log on and see their usage so they can actually see where they use throughout the day. During the day, it's one up here towards the north that has got a lot of advanced metering installed for all their customers. They put this portal in place so they can log on and see their electric and they can also see their water usage. And if you talk to Jim, their manager, he says the water usage is really just as important, if not more important than the electricity. Because with that, they do water loss reports and water leak reports. Every day their staff gets leak reports out of this new system. They can contact customers if there's a leak and be proactive. Have them fix that before they get that big bill and are unhappy at the end of the month. He told me a story a little while ago about a customer that they called and the spigot actually broke off outside their house and it caught a day and a half. His water was running versus I don't know how long he would have taken to catch that, but they had a big bill at the end of the month. So those are some of the things members are doing now to try to improve customer service and take it to the next level once they have the foundation in place. The Northstar system is complex. It takes a long time for members to learn. It's a lot different. It's probably one of the biggest projects the building staff here will ever undertake. But all the members that I've dealt with in these conversions, a year in, come back and say they're really happy where they are and believe they have more information now and help the customers better than they did in the past.
I guess that was one of the questions I was gonna have for you. So other communities, when they went to this billing system, they had the same sort of problems that we're having with the billing system?
Every city has its own set of unique issues that we deal with through implementation. But everyone's got a lot of commonality, but there's always one or two things that we deal with, and you have to work through those. And a year in, there's a lot of comfort level. People, in all cases I've seen, are very proficient after a year.
But it takes about a year to get it straightened
I
out.
would say it takes about a year. You have to go through all the normal things you do in a year, rate changes, seasonal type things.
Is our system a little bit different because we have so many different things on there, the TV, the garbage, does that make it different or
Not really. Almost all the communities do electric, sewer, water, garbage, fire protection. A lot
And everybody else that's using this, are they using the meters that we're going to be putting in? We have a few of them in, but,
Yeah, we have a split between Ulster and Census, are the two vendors that we support. You're putting in Census, and we have about 5 other members right now that are using Census. So yes, we're a pretty good base.
and what were the other members using?
Ulster is the other kind. Census is used by a lot of our, Onondaga uses Census, Plymouth, Wisconsin, Crystal Falls here uses Census. I think of the other one, but yeah, we have several others.
Mary, how long have we been on that system?
We did the conversion in January, went live in February with our January bills. So the
7
bills
months.
that just went over our 5th month.
And the advanced metering that you're talking about, where we can get different rates for different times of the day, will that, do we need the new meters in place for that to work?
You would need them in place before you could implement something like that, yeah. The first step is really just putting them in place, and you never really have to implement those new rates. But at least you have the information on your customers to see.
It seems to me a big advantage if we could get more of our users to have most of their energy usage during the night when our rates are lower, we don't have to pay a big bill. We've got, according to Mr. Anderson, several people in the community that have very high electric bills, and they could probably have those.
But how many
Electrical.
people are going to stay up at night and do their wash and that? You would have to have it probably earlier in the day to benefit.
You do your wash at night, you gotta turn the lights on. If you do it during the day, you don't have to use your lights.
Well, there are people who can have their usage during the night.
One of the big advantages of having the AMI system fully deployed is we have the information. Whitehall, we put in a calculator, so they have an optional time use rate. If you benefit from it, you can go on it. And right now, if someone came in and asked you if the time use rate would benefit them, you don't know. You say, well, think about how you use electricity, but you really don't know. Whitehall, we have a calculator, they type in the account number, and it looks over their last years of history, and it said you would have saved $4 a month by being a time use rate. So they can make that decision with numbers rather than just guessing. And then it also has a section on the part we hand the customer there. It says if you would shift 10% of your electricity off peak, you would save this much. So it gives them, at least they know where they're at.
Well, in our area, Wisconsin Electric does offer that, but there's a substantial difference between the day-night and the, a very substantial difference. I don't know that we'd want to do that, but that's one thing I'm looking forward to. We can initiate a program like that where people could benefit.
When we have all the numbers and you have your advanced meters deployed, we can at least do some analytics and tell you exactly how it would affect you. So then we can figure out what the best differential would be for your customer.
But then when you also sit down and you look at your meter charge on your bill, your meter charges are higher because the meters are more expensive. So are you really saving a lot of money? I mean, your meter charge every month is more money because if they have to replace those meters, they're a lot more expensive. So,
I thought they weren't, were they?
No, we didn't change the meter charge, whether you had a regular meter or the AMI.
I thought
So the
the
meter
meter-
charge is the same.
I thought the meters, well, I know, but the meters are more expensive. And when we implement the meter charge, we just
Well,
had a rate increase
we
on the
didn't
meter
find-
charge, correct?
We didn't find no, we didn't change the electric rate.
The water meters. Didn't we have an increase on?
Yeah,
the
but that
water
wasn't
meter
because
rate?
of the meters, the types of meters we were putting in. What we showed was that the meter, the new meter was roughly the same as what we were buying before. You know, there wasn't a substantial difference in meter cost. You know, the increase that we implemented was due to the upcoming projects that we were doing. And partly because of the freeze issue we had a few years ago where we had all those repairs and we didn't get, 100% reimbursement from the state.
That was my impression, that the new meters aren't more expensive.
They're just a little bit more. They're not substantially more. I think it was like $10 a meter, something on that order. Does that sound about right, Mary?
Yeah, I don't remember the number. They were more, but I don't think it was a huge number.
It
Didn't
wasn't.
these new meters have a longer lifespan than
They
the
actually
ones they were
doubled the
replacing?
lifespan.
Doubled the
It was a
lifespan.
battery in the meter. The old meters, it had a 10-year battery, and then the new meter was 20-year. So it was a double the battery.
And you guys do got some support that, you know, we could send the girls to or whatever to
Yes,
help
we
them
do.
out?
Yep, like Lance is there this week for 3 days of support. We offer support several times a year, even on demand, if someone wants to schedule something. We have people that do training. It's always recommended they come to WBI because it's really good to get away from the distractions of your office, to be able to focus for a few days on training.
That's the support I think we paid, and we paid $900 and some a month for that support?
Yes,
Yeah.
support and licensing. That's the licensing of the software.
There's you had told me about the users group coming up in September, and we're gonna send, 2 girls down for that. I think it's a Wednesday, Thursday.
Yep, training, get a good understanding of the system. I think it really is nice to train after you've had a while too, because you understand more of what Joy has.
It sounds like you're strongly in favor of this new system and the new meters then?
Yes. It's something that's worked well for the membership up to this point. Good software. Every software company has some things you don't like, some things you like. But overall, it does what we needed to do, what the members needed to do, at a pretty reasonable price.
Is there any other questions in the council? Or anybody in the audience have any questions?
I have a question, I'm sorry. With the new upgraded meter, does the meter do the entire thing, the billing, or does the staff here have to input everything locally and then it's transmitted to them?
It's still done here, yep. They still do the billing here in the software. The meter just sends them back the information when they need it to bill.
The printing is done out of town.
Oh, the printing is done out of town, yes, but they actually upload that.
So what was the reason for the change? I mean, if you're doing the work anyway, here, what do the upgraded meters do for us?
They'll allow her to do remote disconnects from the office. They'll allow move in and move out reads to be done here. And allow them to have information to work with the customers if they call in to know more about their usage.
But we didn't have that before,
Nope. These are all new functions.
and are all the updated meters in place?
No, they're just starting to roll those out.
So this is only the beginning
Yes.
of confusion.
Well, there were two steps to this. The first step was the billing system, so that's in place.
Okay.
Now, step 2 is the meters. And the meters should be a fairly smooth rollout.
And we're in the process of changing meters slowly as time allows and as they're needed. When old meters go bad, then they're replaced with a new meter. And I would assume that if we do go to a timed system, that they need a new meter.
Right.
If somebody wants to do that. And then we have to come up with electric rates that would correspond with that. Is there any other questions?
Were the meters upgraded a few years back, all the meters?
No, about 12 to 15 years.
15?
12 to 15, yeah. The water meters are at and over their 10-year. The electric meters, we got a used meter out of Florida about 12 years ago. So it was used at the time we got it. So I don't know how old it was at the time that we got it.
I'm curious about how long is the $900 a month fee applicable? Is that going to double next year, or
That,
are we in for 3 years, 1 year? How long are we in this for?
the 900 spread out your implementation fees over, I believe it was a 5-year period.
Thank you. If nobody else has any other questions, I think.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, KPE Annual Miscellaneous Engineering Services. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an annual approval that we ask council. Mr. Dave Krause, owner of KPE Engineering, has been our engineer for, since the original master plan in 2005, and we asked council for a $7,000 allotment to utilize him throughout the year to handle miscellaneous engineering activities, specifically towards our distribution system. He does do some of the work as well with the hydro, but his specialty is mainly in the transfer from the hydro to electric and then through the distribution system. We maintain our budget every year at this level. Most of the time he's underneath that, but we feel comfortable with this amount.
Do we know the exact figure for last year, Ray?
It was about $5,500.
How long have you guys been using him?
Since 2010, or no, 2006, I'm sorry. Yeah. And, you know, we're just very comfortable. He knows the system. He works with a number of other electric utilities, mostly utilities like ours, you know, not with the large investor owns, but mostly like the municipal work with us.
So we've always had them. I just want to make it clear that this isn't because we don't have a utility director.
No, we've
Okay.
always used him. I mean, our utility director, myself, I mean, I have an engineering degree, but not electrical, so, you know, this is complicated engineering type activity.
Yeah,
that we
I just
would
wanted
use,
to
yeah.
make it clear that this isn't something that, I know you said the years that we had it, but.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Otherwise, we need a motion.
I make a motion, we approve KPE's engineering service not to exceed $7,000.
Support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Bubbalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes. Next on the agenda, Sturgeon Hydro Falls Unit Number 2, Repair Quest, change order number 2. Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, this is the final closeout for the shop repairs for unit number 2, and the contractor has requested $7,889.91 change order to complete the billing. This is 100% reimbursable through insurance, and partly it's you know, due just like we had on change order 1. There's quite a bit of repair work and you know, in the balancing, and then you know, making sure that it was complete. So
So there was no change order to this one before, right?
yeah, there was one before from the original contract we had from late last year. Then when we re-looked at it when he started up, I wanted him to make sure, you know, that you know, reevaluate his numbers. This particular unit, we ended up taking out some what they call boat pieces. They're just metal pieces that we sent to for analysis, and so he had to actually include new material and work that into the runner. So there was a lot of additional work that had to be done after the fact of when he gave us his original quote.
The other change order was like $6,500.
Yeah,
That was the last week.
that was the
last
first one.
meeting,
Yeah.
The first one.
Yeah, and then, like I said, this closes it out. There's no more work, actually. We should be, within the next day or two, you know, looking to finalize and put water in the pit. So they're actually close to the final install. So,
Does this work carry a guarantee?
no, this is repair work, Doc, so all repair work. I mean, unless there was some gross, really gross issue that we could prove, you know, in repair work, you very rarely get a, you know, a substantial warranty on it. It might be 30 days, that's about it. I mean, there's so many different things that could go wrong in repair work that, you know, it's out of noise control.
Any other questions? Otherwise, we need a motion to approve the repair order, change order number 2.
I'll make a motion that change order number 2 be approved to FMR for $7,889.91 for final billing on the shop repairs to unit number 2.
Support.
Not to exceed 70.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menninger?
Yes.
Next on the agenda, net metering contract, Catherine Hart. Mr. Anderson.
Okay, this particular agenda item involves a net metering agreement that we have with Ms. Hart with her solar panels up on the hill, Travis Farm Road. We've had an agreement since 2010. What we did find was that we needed to make some revisions to the agreement based on some of the legislation that has been revised in Lansing. And I highlighted that out within the agreement. It's sections 4.2, paragraphs C and D. And basically, it's taking the agreement and how we were handling, the buy-sell agreement. We were doing it on an annual basis. We need to do that. We're going to do that on a monthly basis, and it's based off of our retail rate. So it actually simplified the language and simplified the process. Went over it with Catherine, and I believe we're all good in the agreement, or?
Well, we are
Okay.
to a certain extent. I can
Right.
clarify a little. For the last 5.5 years, I have been paying the regular utility rate, as everybody else does for electrical. I've been paid for excess solar power production, 4.5 cents a kilowatt hour. So this net metering agreement to me is wonderful, and I thank you for that opportunity. Thank you so much. I do have a question, and I'd like to make a point on point D. The last sentence in that paragraph concerns me, and I'd like clarification. It says, installed capacity of the generating facility may not exceed 30 kW. And I just want to make certain that that is not limiting me in the future to 30 kW or less. I haven't given up on the idea of a solar community yet. So, it's not okay if this is limiting me to 30 kW. If it refers to existing service, it's okay.
Well, not being an
That's what we
attorney,
discussed, right?
it is what we discussed, and that language is from the original agreement, as we discussed. That, in my interpretation, does not preclude new equipment. This deals with the equipment that you have.
Existing, okay.
Exactly.
Perfect.
If you have new equipment and new solar field, you will need a new agreement. At that time, we will have to sit down, because there is a whole section attached to this that deals with the technical, and you've
Right.
gone through that before. We'll have to go through it again, and so it's really fashioning a new agreement.
Okay, very good. That was the only
Yeah.
point I wanted.
Grant, are you,
And that's why I was looking at the same thing when you brought that up. I mean, I wasn't, this was probably from the utility, I'm assuming this came from the utility of our partners that we had this contract. I wasn't involved in the negotiation.
yeah, that was the original agreement in 2010. Since then, there's been some sophistication in how the state is handling in the energy bills, how they're handling net metering. There's more interest in net metering, especially down below the bridge. It's still mainly wind, but solar is picking up some interest, and it's just that they're trying to standardize, and just like we're doing here with how you're handling, or how we're handling this relationship. But again, when you add new equipment, we have to reevaluate the capacities, we have to evaluate our connections. There's a lot of technical that goes involved in it. It involves a new agreement, really. I mean, we have to sit down
Right.
and go back through this.
I think it's a reasonable reading. It's a clarification for you that, the way it reads, installed capacity of your generating facility at this time, when this agreement is entered into, is less than the 30 kilowatts. And certainly, I think we all agree that, generating solar power is a good environmental option. And I think the council always wants to see new business in the community. But I think it would generate, if you decided to double it, I think that would go beyond and create the need for a new agreement. And I also did notice too that I think it's terminated, both parties are able to terminate with 30 days, I think it was a 30-day notice.
Right.
So if you said, I want to double my capacity and put up a solar farm, you would have to look at redoing and sitting down and reworking the agreement as well because of the increased capacity.
Very
So,
good. I was just concerned that it would be.
The other aspect too is, again, going back to the state of Michigan, I believe in Wisconsin it's very similar. In fact, they may be even more aggressive. Is that what they've said is that it's incumbent upon the utility, to work with you. So, we have a responsibility and a requirement to work with you.
Very good.
Thank
Do you
you.
have any questions for me?
Does that then apply to any other members of our city, that if someone else wants to put in a solar farm, it would be incumbent upon the city to work with them?
Yes, there's a lot of requirements that we have to go through. I mean, when we went through it the first time with the interconnection and the technical, it takes a little bit of time. You definitely want to do a cost-benefit analysis. It doesn't work for everybody, but yes, if somebody has a project, it's incumbent upon us to work with that individual, on that project.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions from the council on this? Otherwise, we need a motion to approve the net metering contract with Catherine Hart.
I make a motion, we approve the net metering contract with Catherine Hart.
Support.
Mrs. Brew,
Yes.
Mr. Babalani,
Yes.
Dr. Hayes,
Yes.
Mr. Menegini.
Yes.
Mr. Pop.
Yes.
Next on the agenda is Resolution 2016-16, detach certain territory from the Township of Norway and annex it to the City of Norway. This is at my request. The city owns 40 acres in the township, just over the line. It's attached to the town, attached to the city. And I brought this up in the past. I always felt like it was a good idea, and I've had people approach me to say that it's a, quote, no-brainer, end quote. There's no good reason not to make this part of the city that I can see. The township does not, we don't pay any taxes to the township for this land. The township is out nothing if we annex this. And then if we ever do anything with this, as far as I'm concerned, this land will never be sold. But if some future council decides to listen to an offer and sell the land, then it's gone, and we wouldn't be able to annex it, and we lost those taxes. So, in my opinion, it only makes sense. So I'd like to hear what the rest of the council has to say.
I would like to know, what is the benefit of annexing it, being it's a 40, we have no land around it, do we? Is it just a 40 by itself, right?
Right. Well, there's no disadvantage to it. And then it's part of the city. Our police officers can go there. They go there now anyway to target practice. A lot of other law enforcement agencies go there
And all
to
it is,
target practice. And we use the land. So in my opinion, there's no reason not to do it. It's right on the city boundary line. So why wouldn't you want to be part of the city?
but is it connected to
Yeah.
our land?
No, it's connected to the city. It's right on the boundary of the city, so it's contiguous with the city.
It's on the north side of Boundary Line Road, but there's no property on that side that's connecting other than the road. The road connects. There's only 140 on the other side of the north side of Boundary Line Road. There's no existing property next door that the city owns, or
No,
This would be the only 40 on the north side of Boundary Line Road.
That's what I was asking, is this
That
a
would be an
connection to our other
annexation.
property?
We're still pulling gravel out of there, aren't we, Ray?
Oh, yeah.
We're supposed to
Yeah,
crush
there's
it.
quite a bit. We're gonna be crushing in August, and sand. We crush at the same time, winter sand.
Well, I remember the last time this came up, I was against it in fear of agitating the township, but after we annexed all the other property, I never heard one peep from any township person, so like Doc said, I think we might as well annex it.
I feel that we shouldn't annex it in. I don't think there's any benefit other than patrolling over there, and we haven't had any patrolling problems up there. I don't believe it's ever going to be sold because it's the only sand pit that we have right now in the Norway City area. It would be a 40 by itself out there on the north side of Boundary Line Road. I think if we were going to do that, we should annex more property in on the other side of that road. I think that it shouldn't be singled out. It's almost like spot zoning, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, we don't own any property on the other side of the road. We can only annex property that we own.
It's not going to do any good. What is it going to do besides allowing us to patrol it, and we're not
If
going to...
somebody does something out there, our city has, our officers have no legal right to do anything. If somebody wanted to steal our gravel, and they couldn't do anything about it, as far as I know. And the question is, why not do it?
They can patrol on that road, as far as I know, right, Ray?
Yeah, on the road,
Boundary
if
Line
it
Road?
goes north of boundary line, then it's the deputies, the sheriff's jurisdiction. South of the road is ours.
I think that the township is having a little shakeup in the management. It sounds like Leonard's not going to run, and I don't think we should rock the boat. I think we should use our free passes on better situations than this.
Well, annexing this doesn't preclude annexing any other land. And annexing the past land, it doesn't preclude annexing this land. So unless the township becomes a chartered township, I don't see where there's any other opportunities for us to annex land, to tell you the truth.
And as far as other law enforcement's using it, I don't think that should take place, because if there was ever an accident up there, we may be held accountable in some way or form. I think it's a bad idea. We haven't...
But it's private property, not just anybody can go in there, can they?
Right. But our city, again, our officers, I can tell you that I drive up and down that road a fair amount, and I have never once seen the sheriff's department car out there. I have seen the city police car out there several times.
I've seen the sheriff up there quite a bit when I was living up on the road. I've seen him out there
I
quite a
never
bit.
have, but
And I see the state police up there quite a bit too. But the new farms that are up there, municipal farms or whatever they are, they're patrolling up around that area quite a bit.
well, again, I don't think there's any reason not to annex it. It's our land. Whether we let other jurisdictions target practice, and that would be for another discussion. I think we need to cooperate with governmental units, myself. People need to target practice someplace, but again, that's a discussion for another day.
I just don't want to upset the township if we're taking the land from
Well,
them.
Again, the township will be out absolutely nothing. They're not losing any taxes. They're not losing anything. And I guess it's not that big of a deal. It's just that to me, it makes so much sense. That's why I propose that we do this. If it doesn't make sense, then I guess that's your opinion.
Did
But-
we talk to the township or anything about this, or no?
What would we talk about?
We brought it up last year, and we said that we were looking at it. So they know that we've looked at it.
There was no heavy discussion about it, like.
No heavy
no,
discussion about it.
And why would they care? I mean, it doesn't make any...
If we're not paying taxes on it, I mean, it's.
But if
why would
it's
they
ever
care?
sold, if something happens and it does sell, they are going to be out tax money.
Yeah, I think that in a few conversations I had with Leonard, there was some concern, about it. And I think it's, when we annex the golf course, when you annex the Marion Park, they're not going to be, they knew what we were doing out with the property we own. by the golf course, that 160 acres. They knew that was coming. I think that was a foregone conclusion, because we pushed hard on a 425 agreement with them, which it's a tax sharing agreement, but we made it very clear that at the end of the agreement, we wanted that to become city, in the city. So they knew that was coming. And I think, the boat landing, that was just a no-brainer. That's just an adder to the park. I'm not sure they reconciled internally the idea of why we needed the gravel pit. We explained, and I think they understand the policing issue, but I think, like Mark had mentioned, that I think they do realize that at some time down the road, a gravel pit is going to run out of gravel, sand, and that, it will be probably developed. Who knows how long that could be? I mean, there's a lot of sand and gravel up there
Yeah.
for us to use, so it could be 30 years, but,
Could be 100 years.
yeah.
Annexing though over by the park, part of that was annexed so we could patrol Marion Park, correct?
Well, actually, that all started through, wanting to get that 160 acres
Into the system.
Because, we have limited housing opportunity. And that was long-term, that was looked at as a huge benefit for us. Again, they knew our intent right from day one, because we spent 2 years working on, maybe longer, working on a 425 agreement, and they dragged their feet on it. And so I think they realized that, we did what we had to do, because they couldn't come to consensus on the 425. Again, the boat landing, we did that because we needed to patrol that. That was becoming a problem down there, and so we needed to be able to do that.
But out by the park though, it was for added security, because now we can patrol the
Yeah,
park.
and Marion Park, that was a benefit, of course, that, we should patrol our own park. But I can't say we don't have, little issues and skirmishes here and there up on that property. From a enforcement standpoint, I mean, it would be nice to be able to go in there and be able to deal with it. Not that it's a major issue, but it happens. So, how gates are. People don't always listen to gates or follow the rules of the gates.
Well, if you're concerned about the township possibly losing taxes sometime in the future, then you're concerned more about the township than the city, and I don't think you should be worried about the welfare of the township anyway. We're on the council, we should worry about the welfare of the city, what's best for the city.
Well, I don't believe we're worried about the township, Doc. I don't want to burn any bridges, so if we need them down the road, we got a little bit better working relationship. If we need anything besides annexation, where we have to deal with the township, it's going to help if we're on a good working relationship with them. So I wouldn't go that far to say we're not concerned about the city. I think that's a very poor statement.
Well, I should say that it makes more sense and it's more advantageous to the city to annex that property than it is a disadvantage to the township to lose that property. And again, if at some time in the future, if some future council decides to sell it, I'd rather see it as part of the city.
I guess then what I would say is that once we get where we have the gravel just about out of there, then we pick if we're going to annex it in at that point in time. Because right now, I don't believe there's any benefit. And I think it's just ruining our working relationship with the township.
You have some private knowledge about somebody in the township is opposed to this?
Well,
I haven't heard
Ray had
anything.
said that Leonard wasn't overly thrilled. I know Leonard is getting out. It sounds like it. And I would rather not piss off the township if we don't have to, for something that doesn't really matter if we have it done.
Well, at least said no one's really objected in the township. Well, with that, I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 2016-16.
Support.
Mr. Babalani?
No.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes?
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
No.
Mrs. Brew?
No.
With that, we conclude our meeting. anybody in the audience like to make any comments? May address the council coming to the podium. State your name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to 5 minutes.
My name is Sam Paul, 617 Mine Street, Norway. I'm here with concerning questions about ordinance 386. I approached the city about if it was possible or if you could ride a golf cart on the streets to see if I could get a license, and he said, no, you cannot ride a golf cart on the street. I then contacted Mr. Bobolani, who in turn contacted Chief Schaefer, who was over the next day and very helpful, explaining everything about the ordinance. He told me as long as I had an ORV sticker and a helmet, that I could ride on the streets.
And lights.
And lights, yes. So, like I said, he spent about 45 minutes with me. It was very helpful. Now, the questions I have concerning the golf cart pertaining to the helmet, my golf cart has 8-inch wide tires. I have a rear view mirror. I have headlights plus taillights. Chief Schaefer told me I only needed headlights. I have the taillights and the headlights. It has a governor on it. It doesn't go over 15 miles an hour. So I don't see the reason why elderly people should have to wear helmets.
I don't think is that our policy, or?
That's,
Yes.
that's good.
I get to answer that, I guess, for you. This came up in the last couple of days, and we were chatting a little bit about it. I got some calls from some of the folks, and I think having golf carts being available, I know that in other areas, they're obviously a great form of transportation, especially the electric carts are quieter, they move around, probably a little bit more environmentally conscious than even gas carts. Looking at the ordinance, as you pointed out, the headlights and taillights necessary. Can't go over 25 miles an hour within the community. Actually, one thing I noticed looking at the ordinance is a requirement that even when you're using your ORV, you have to have your lights on at all times, golf cart or otherwise, which I didn't know until I took a little closer look at it, so thanks for bringing that up. So you do need the headlights, the taillights, but the issue on the helmet comes down to the roll cage. And it's actually Michigan state law. It's not just our ordinances. Because I was taking a look at that, because trying to get my head around it as well as, can you have a golf cart for, like you said, some of our seniors? It's an easy way to get around here in the community. And looking at the state statutes, it's both in our ordinance and our statutes. From my reading of this, if you have to have, for an ORV, which is, a golf cart would qualify under the ordinance for an ORV, you have to have, each passenger and the driver is required to wear a helmet, and eyewear actually, unless it's equipped with a roof that meets or exceeds the standards for a crash helmet, and each passenger and operator has a seat belt, so you also need a seat belt. If you have the seat belt, and instead of the helmet you have a cage, if you will, or a roof that meets the DOT requirements basically in exchange for a helmet, then you're good to go. But the problem is most of the golf carts don't have that beefed up roof attached to it like some of these ORVs do. And I think that's where the rub comes in. And from what, I took a look at it, I didn't spend hours on end for the taxpayers at this point unless the council tells me to. But from when I looked at it, also it's under MCL 324-81133 sub 2 and B. It's a state statute requirement for the helmet on ORVs. Needs that seat belt and the protective covering, the roof, just in lieu of a helmet. That gets people that are driving an ORV out of the need to wear a helmet. So it's both in the ordinance and in the state statute is that requirement. So that's where the rub comes in a little bit there.
Okay, I have a few more questions about daylight to dusk riding. I see it's safety-wise, but what if you're coming back from a ride late? Like, for one instance, you
I don't know if it's necessarily addressed to me or not on behalf of the council. You know, I think one of these, I did look at a couple other ordinances throughout the state, just for some ideas and just for some reference points. Some are actually much more detailed. Some are a little bit, ours appears to be pretty broad-based, but along those lines with keeping the headlights on all the time. The other one that jumped out at me was that you're not allowed to operate an ORV in city limits except from dawn till dusk. And that brings up a good point, and that was something that I did catch looking at some of the other ordinances. Sometimes you'll see if it's after dusk, speed limit must be reduced down accordingly and have some parameters in there, as you're referencing, Mr. Fall, if you're coming from a ride or you're coming back from camp or some other situation. And I don't know how the officers are, if they're using, kind of looking at this and saying, hey, we're going to use some common sense. I see ORVs traveling at night often. So I don't know what the policy is for the police officers, how rigidly they're enforcing it, but it is in the ordinance. As prosecutor, I haven't seen tickets coming through my office that folks are being ticketed. I haven't seen any of them, frankly, in that regard. So it appears as though they're using some judgment in that regard, because I haven't seen any of them, or at least nobody's challenged them. But it's something that I noted as well, in again reviewing the ordinance. And as far as the in and out of the alleys, because you generally can't operate your vehicle, your ORV, in the alleys pursuant to the ordinance, except for some exceptions, as you've noted. And again, I haven't seen any tickets being issued. I'm not saying that they haven't been issued, but it's a good point. At times, you need to go through an alley at times, but I think where some of the issues is people start taking liberties with it, and it perhaps is, having just the language in there that says no operation in the alleys with some very limited circumstances, perhaps keeps it a little bit better of a guide and keeps it more of it to a minimum. But I haven't seen any tickets being issued, or at least them being challenged. But you brought up some good points that, I think what I've always seen with this council is a willingness to take a look at things, and if there's a concern from citizens, take a look at it. And you've raised a few points that I know has generated some discussion among the council. So, on behalf of their perspective, I thank you for bringing those up, because it's important to have some citizen feedback.
Yes, as far as Mr. Carlson is the light law goes, I live on Line Street, which is a very busy street for ORVs, and 95% of ORVs or mopeds that come by, they're not using their lights.
Well, and it's really a safety
I don't
issue.
think that's a big problem, for the city. It's daytime, but it's in the ordinance,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get down on anybody and that stuff, but.
Well, the go-kart, or the mopeds, are a safety. I think they're a very big safety concern, probably even more so than golf carts, perhaps, because younger folks, it seems like, tend to be on them and running around without care to the vehicle codes, or without.
Yeah, we don't see many issues with ORVs. We see more with the mopeds. But as far as just some history, when we evaluated this and went through this the first time, the reason that the alleys were excluded there were two reasons. One is the snowmobiles, we recognize they use the alleys exclusively during the winter. And there was a concern that in the summer, half the alleys are gravel. So you'll have the dust and the ORVs kicking up the dust. The other is that people are out in their backyards in the summer as opposed to in the winter, windows are closed. So you won't hear the noise. That was one. The other is that cars typically come up to an intersection, and look. They're rarely looking at the alleys. And if an ORV comes flying out of an alley, which I've seen them here, it's working in my office and, they come by, there's a safety concern there. So it's always good to look at the details, especially after a number of years. We've had this now for a number of years. We did a yearly, the first year we did an evaluation. We decided it was working, so we kept it. But it's always good to review the language to see what's working and what's not.
And last year, we took off the restriction around the school, because at first you couldn't go on 4th Avenue and Main Street by the school, Section Street by the school. And then we decided we didn't need that, so you can do that now. I don't know if you noticed, but the sign is down,
No, we took that off last
signs
year.
are gone. That's one.
Yeah.
And really, when it comes down to the helmet, the question he has on the helmet, It's not really our law. It's a state law, and there ain't a whole lot you can do with a state law. You can't change the state law.
That raises a good question. The state says you can ride your motorbike without a helmet now,
And
Right.
moped, after 18 years old.
after 18 years old. But can we tweak this to, I'm not saying we're going to, just, can we supersede the state law? I mean, the state says, now you don't need helmets on your motorbikes. Why can't we say, you don't need helmets on your ORVs?
The DNR will give you a ticket for that.
Oh,
But what about,
Okay.
can we say we don't need a helmet on a golf cart?
It's, that's pretty
that something
hard
we
to
could
go
do, Grant?
against
Can
the
we-
state law.
well, I
Something
just,
like that against the state?
yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing, you could wear, it just has to be a DOT helmet. You could wear a half helmet. Who inspects the cages to say that it's a rollover cage? I mean, if you took a pipe bender and built your own cage, I mean, somebody got to inspect the cage to see if it'll withstand the pressure of the machine upside down.
Same people that are looking for the stamp in the helmet.
So I mean, who's to say that you're going to get stopped if you don't have a helmet on and you have a pretty hefty pipe over your head? Grant?
Well, I think usually they have like a stamp of DOT approved. I mean, obviously the.
On the helmet, yes, but not on the cage.
Right, right. You're walking a slippery slope as far as, I mean, if you pull a golf cart and you have a roll cage on the golf cart, I'm not sure the process in which we would go ahead and check to see if it meets certain DOT standards. Perhaps the state police could assist in helping us or the Department of Transportation. But Mr. Bablani brings up a good point. I mean, they do have the half helmets that are relatively unobstructed, that are a little bit less onerous to wear than some of the full-faced ones, but.
Or the cage, I mean, whose discretion is it for the cage to see if the cage is strong enough? If somebody had an aftermarket pipe,
I know, but we don't want to,
Yeah.
until we know, we don't want to send people out there, and pretty soon people are getting ticketed either. I mean,
well, yeah,
guess-
you'd have to
Well, I
use your
think-
own judgment, but I
I
mean,
think,
I don't know how that would be.
I think the biggest concern would be if we allow it and then there's a fatality or a major injury, what is our liability for allowing it?
Yeah, I'm not saying change it. I'm just saying that who's going to test it? I mean, if you had an aftermarket roll cage on there, who's to say that it's good or not good?
DOT, and that's the language that the statute uses, is that it has to be up to DOT standards. I don't know if there's a stamp on them, and I know I've got some friends that have put roll cages across the back of their side-by-sides to extend out and done these kits. And I can't say what the testing process would be to say that it can withstand 1,000 pounds of pressure or some
Yeah.
nature. I just don't want to see Mr. Fall driving down with a rigged
Oh, I know what
golf
you mean.
cart,
I
and
know
all of a
what you
sudden
mean.
he gets hurt, and you say, geez, hope it was good enough. I mean, the bottom line is a golf cart roof is not going to protect Mr.
Yeah.
Fall's head if he rolls. That's why they have the helmet.
Yeah, I understand.
But you bring up a good point. I mean, it's some of it is how do you enforce it?
It'd be your discretion, pretty much, against the DOT.
99% out of 100, you're not gonna roll the golf cart over because of the wide wheelbase, because of the wide tires. Unless you went down ditching, in the city, there's no ditches that I see. I mean, I don't even, I just got my ORV sticker today and I took my grandkids for a ride. We all had helmets on. I don't even go press the gas pedal on the way. And they said, Grandpa, let's go faster. And I said, no. I said, we're just out cruising.
And sometimes Mr. Fall might not be so much you as the other person that doesn't see you.
And I'm not
I'll,
saying, I'm not saying I'm against it, Sam. I'm just saying we got to make sure that legally we're covered too before we send people out with roll cages or whatever, before we decide to change
Well,
it.
that would be something you could check into, and like Mark said, it'd be a discretion of the driver, whether he wears the helmet or not.
I'd be curious what some of the other states do where they have these communities that
Right,
they run
right.
exclusively golf carts around. Maybe they're not concerned because there's more golf carts than cars, I don't know.
Maybe a good idea would be to get a hold of Darren, just down the street from you, that drive the state wagon there, he would probably be able to tell you, hey, this is what I think you need to do, you know, cage-wise.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience have any questions, comments?
Bill Maynard, 317 Main Street. Just to follow up on him, the big thing, I didn't understand any answer, was the nighttime. Are you just gonna look at that, or is it's kind of ridiculous? My wife and I last year, we were coming back from Solberg, it got to be about 9:30, we went out for dinner, and we got stopped for driving. He said, if I see you do it again, I'm gonna give you a ticket. I mean, that's a little bit ridiculous. You know, and I said, well, what's nighttime? He said, well, when it starts getting dark. So this fall at 4:30, I gotta have it home? Yes.
We'll take a look at that, because that, I wrote that note down. Take a look at the
Okay, I
whole
just
dawn to
didn't
dusk.
do anything with it.
Yeah.
That might be concerned.
That's one of the areas I want to take a good
It
look
doesn't
at.
sound like we can do anything about the helmet because that's state, but the dawn to dusk.
Yeah, that one is,
something
I think
that
is ours,
council
and
consider.
I'd like to talk to Chief Schaefer and see what he's, you know.
But the
his opinions.
nighttime, I
Yeah.
mean, it's a little bit.
Well, you have the lights on, we're requiring the lights, and, you know, maybe it's just that,
I tell my lights on all the time,
yeah.
day or night, but to have to be home, say it's fall and it's nice out, you wanna go out, you come, not get home, it's almost 4:30, you know. Just wondering if you're gonna look at that.
We'll take a look.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience like to ask any questions on any matter? Make any statements? Otherwise, council comments. Mr. Pop? Oh, one more.
I've been here for a while, so, my name is Jean Bradford, 2465 Travis Farm Road. Did the DNR ever purchase the property by the Menominee River? Just yes or no?
Not yet.
That was, they did?
Not yet.
They did not, okay. Have the Habitat houses been started in Third Ward?
Not yet.
That's still pending?
That's still pending. Yeah, both of those questions are still pending.
Okay, then my final, the cable television, have you had problems with that recently?
On Channel 2 we have. The guide on Channel 2, they downloaded the wrong guide, and so we're trying to get the one that's supposed to be for us downloaded. That was from Rovi, wherever we get the guide from.
Where does that come from?
From the company, the actual company that, it's like a channel, it's like, you know, Disney or one of the other channels. I mean, we actually subscribe to that particular channel, TV Guide channel.
Okay.
And then they take our zip code, they take our zip code, and then they download on a regular basis our stations. And I think what happened was, I think sounds like we got charters, you know, that they, for whatever reason, downloaded the wrong one. So we've been working on the last couple of days trying to get that straightened out.
So how long does it take to correct something like that?
Never had that before, so I'm not sure. I was hoping it would be done within a 24-hour period.
So they didn't follow up on it, or?
Well, yeah, I followed up today.
And
They said they're working on it. I don't know the specific details of it, you know, so I just actually found out about it yesterday, so.
Okay, because like, our Channel 3 has gone out as
Well,
periodically.
yeah, Channel 3, that's an off-air channel, a digital off-air, and so that typically is, you know, from the station. You know, we don't really have control over, you know, they're sending that over the antenna.
Okay. And then is that a problem with the computer service too, where the computers are really slow?
No, that has nothing to do with that.
Okay, well, I do have a call in for that. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark, I got one last question. Andy, what if I have insurance on my, golf cart? The city wouldn't be liable in any way then.
Yeah, I don't know.
If I had my own insurance, and if I had
we have nothing to do with the helmets. We're looking into the time, whether it can be after dark or not. That's going to be something we'll talk to the chief about. The helmets, that's a state law.
Well, I'm not saying after dark, no, I'm saying for the city to be liable if I didn't have to wear a helmet, if I had insurance on mine, and the city wouldn't be liable in any way at all.
Yeah, but then you'd be violating state law.
To put insurance on my car?
No, to not wear a helmet. To not wear a helmet would be violating state law. So even if we changed the city law, you'd still be violating state law.
Unless you had a roll cage, Sam.
Any other questions? No, Mr. Pop.
I got something that I'd like to bring up. I talked with Mr. Anderson a little while ago. We're moving the tennis courts up at the Marion Park, and he was talking about the old tennis courts would be made into a parking lot for the soccer fields, like handicapped or whatever else not. I would like to see, instead of tearing both of those tennis courts down, making one of those tennis courts into a basketball court or something. It wouldn't cost no money. There's kids at the school until 10:30, 11 o'clock at night playing basketball. There's kids up on Norway Hill, up there playing basketball. That would give a good place for them to go and play basketball out there where they're not in the neighborhoods, keep everybody up. There's lights out there, keep the lights on for the tennis courts, so we really wouldn't have to put much money into it. It would be just, I'm sure we got some kind of poles or something down at the city garage, so we just have to put some basketball backboards up. I think that's something that we could look into. We keep adding to Marion Park instead of taking something away that we wouldn't have to put the court itself, the asphalt or whatever that is, it's there, so we wouldn't have to put something new in there. And how old is the newest court?
Actually, the two courts near the road are the oldest of the two.
Oh, they are.
Yeah.
And they look the best.
Yeah. That's a shame of it, but yeah, they're the oldest of the two and they're in the best shape. But,
I think just that's adding more to Marion Park, more things to drive people out there. And another thing too is in 2 weeks, our next city council meeting, I won't be here, I'll be out of town. My 11-year-old softball team, we made it to the state championships down in Essexville, so I'll be down coaching them. So I ask for your permission to miss the meeting. That's all I got.
So you're going to evaluate this tennis courts or the basketball?
yeah, we talked about it. I think it's a pretty simple thing. I know that they go up on the hill. They like to play on those courts. We do have courts down at Third Ward. And for whatever reason, they never really
Never use it.
caught on.
No kids.
I think it's a good idea because you have the other kids out there, they might have their brothers playing soccer
Yeah.
or baseball, and they want to shoot a couple hoops. I think it's a good idea.
I mean, there's a number of different things that we could, look at to utilize the pavement. The two farthest are just so bad that
Yeah.
I'm afraid I just would take
Well,
them
after we
out.
talked about it, when we were setting everything up for the 125 out there, I was like, hey, you know what, this would be the surface is perfect.
Yeah.
And there's no maintenance that we'd have to do to it, just throw some backboards out there and kids.
Did you
play
get
out there.
feedback from the kids? Whether
Oh,
they
yeah,
got-
there are a ton of kids, and I was actually tonight, because we had football camp tonight, started with the high school, and I asked a lot of them, and they said, yeah, they would be out there.
They'd be out there?
You know,
That-
'cause then
that's
they don't have
perfect.
to worry
That's
about
good.
a noise ordinance, they don't have to worry about,
Well, we get that in the neighborhood.
yeah.
With the pounding the basketball.
Well, I know I live, kitty corner to the school, the playground, and I don't complain, because I love seeing the kids out there, rather see them doing something like that than doing something else.
Well, and the lights
But
are
you
out
can
there
hear them,
too.
and they don't have no lights out there, so they're playing in the dark, these kids want something to do like that, and I think that's a perfect area for
And
it.
we aren't planning to move the lights over to the tennis courts.
Okay,
So they'll stay there.
yeah,
So we can fix that.
so I think it would be
Would we
fairly
need a fence then
inexpensive.
to separate the parts from the parking lot or
Well, the fence is there, and if we have to modify it to include the one side, it's got a partial fence on one side. We could just use the old fence, and patch it up and use it. I mean, you don't need to have a 10-foot fence. you know, along the side.
No.
So,
Just
I
so
think if
cars
there's
aren't gonna be driving through there.
yeah, right.
I know part of it didn't look good. I was out there at the 125. I didn't think that would, but I didn't appreciate maybe the closer sides then.
Yeah, the first two courts are playable, you know, they're playable. They're not great, but they're playable, and especially for basketball, they're definitely playable.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that is a good use. We have to look into the poles, you know, and hoops, but I mean, that's
Fairly inexpensive.
they're fairly
Yeah.
inexpensive.
And it would just add to our facility out there.
Ms. Brew,
I have
any
nothing.
questions? Mr. Babalana?
I got a couple, Doc. I've been talking to Ray and Grant, and I really do think we need to recap some money on that power line extension that was put in up Norway Mountain Road, being the Planning Commission has a development on the table for that. That extension hanging out there is almost $19,000. And I think we need to get some kind of a game plan, at least make the developer, and minimal, make the developer aware that if he decides to put one electric meter on there, that it potentially could cost them almost $19,000 to get the power turned on. I think we need to talk about that, how we're gonna recap that money. And so we can put it into the projects that are out there, like the one Doc wants to do on Valley View. It's almost 19 grand, it's like 18,950 or something like that, eh, Mary?
18,945.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we need a plan, and being we got that project that's with the Planning Commission, we need to step it up and have Grant take a look at our options. Is that something anybody else wants to comment on?
Should get the utility board to look at that.
And Ray, when I was looking at that, what you had put in our memo, so when we did sell it, it was supposed to have 8 possibly house sites on it?
Yeah, the development that we reviewed had 8 parcels, large parcels. One was purchased. That's what precipitated the discussion. And the individual that purchased it got a price from us, you know, originally got a price from us, and it was for 100% of the cost. And, you know, it was expensive, obviously. But then he went to We Energies, and their price is actually less because they're over by the iron mine, and they were able to come in, you know, from the backside. And so the council at the time when we reviewed it, you know, wanted to not have We Energies up on the hill. So that was part of that discussion. What we came up with for this individual was using, you know, and actually that's when we forced Mr. Gottstein to come up with a development plan where he came up with the 8 parcels. Because he didn't have, north of the road, he didn't have that all laid out. And so we had him put together his concept for that, and that's where we came up with that.
So originally then, being it was gonna be 8 sites, it was gonna be divided?
Right.
The cost of the line move?
1/8 per parcel.
Okay.
And we put that line in up along the road on a market basis. I mean, We Energy still could, under the legislation, they still could come in because it's, if it's vacant or, you know, it's a new building under the state law, they can still service that. But we're in a better position from a financial
So it's
standpoint.
not our territory where,
Well, they don't have territories the way they used to, you know, and the only real territory we have is inside the city limits. If, in a contiguous township, whether it's Brighton Township or Norway Township, we can serve, but it's a choice of the customer. So then it becomes down to economics. But it has to be a new facility, new building.
so like if we wanted to run all the way up to the top of the hill, the ski hill can't hook onto us because they're already,
Well, we're on the top of the hill with the ski hill. What we don't have is the 3-phase down on the bottom with the lifts.
okay.
That's We Energies.
But the line comes in from a different area. That's
Yeah,
why
it
that line
comes
had to
from
be
the opposite side.
extended up the road.
Right.
It comes in from a whole different area.
Yeah, and they still could, you know, if somebody built and, you know, we put all that cost in, I mean, if We Energies comes in with a lesser price, I mean, they still could go with We Energies. So, you know, it's all, right now, it's dependent on economics. Council decided at that time that it was important for us to be, you know, up on the hill, you know, to take advantage if those homes come in. But we are still waiting on a Michigan Supreme Court case, which should, they talk about having final arguments in October. So we've been waiting for 2 years for this Great Wolf case, and I think this year is finally it's going to be done. So territory issues will become clearer after the Supreme
After
Court.
this.
Yeah, but it'll be October before we think that because the legislature's out, Supreme Court actually follows the same kind of recess period. So they'll take up final arguments in October, we think.
I guess I think we owe it to the ratepayers of the electric city utility customers to try to retrieve this money in any way that we can. And
So
being there's a project in the works, I think we need Mr. Carlson to take a look at our options.
But there was nothing in writing? Did you look at?
No, there was, we couldn't find an agreement that was done with the developer at that time.
Other than it said eight houses?
Yeah, I found the estimates. So they had to split up into, you know, we charge 1/8 of that line.
So if he gets all this property and he only puts one building up there, he's only gotta pay 1/8 of that.
Per that, unless it really comes down to our estimate. You know, if he takes and consolidates all of those parcels, I mean, to me, that would be, you know, it would be incumbent upon us to take a look at that.
Yeah.
And say, do we charge them the 7/8 on that, or,
Yeah,
because he
that would
changed the
be- I mean,
plan, you know?
If you change the plan, and then we're gonna eat $18,000, when
Right.
he would only have to pay $2,000 if, you know, if we only charge him 1/8 or whatever. I think that's something that we gotta look into.
I agree, we gotta look into it, but you also gotta remember what he's saying. You can charge all you want. If somebody buys that, they can go with Wisconsin Electric, and if they're cheaper than us.
But I do think we owe it to the ratepayers to do what we can, and I think it's worth Grant's time, but I'm only one of the 5 to make that call. I just think that we should look at it. And I think we owe it to the ratepayers because all those expenses reflect into the rates of the ratepayers for the electric department, because it is a hefty expense.
I agree, I would like Grant to look into it.
Any other questions?
That's all I got.
Lee?
Strawberry Lake looks real nice now that they got the grass cut there again. All those trees are really coming on good. I'm not sure if that's that Kentucky coffee tree, whatever it is, what that is.
That's one of them, yeah.
Yeah, they look real nice.
There's a lilac in there.
And speaking of trees, would you care to share with the rest of us?
Well, I just asked him if he wanted us to cover, he had something on there for the dumpster, for the shop for fall and spring cleanup.
Speaking of trees, our tree farm, have we ever gotten anything out of that?
Yeah, we just talked about that this past week. It's time to move some of those trees out. So
Okay.
we're gonna do that, and then we're gonna clean it up.
Do you
and
know what
start
kind of
over.
trees they are? I can't, the last time I was out the compost site, I couldn't tell what kind of trees they were.
There's some, let's see if I can remember.
Swamp white oak.
Linden
Yeah,
or
there's
something?
some oaks in there, some linden.
Swamp white oak, which would go good at
Yeah.
wet areas like Strawberry Lake or
Right.
down at, we talked about down at Vulcan Lake.
And while we're on the tree subject, the trees that were planted 2, 3, 4 years ago at Marion Park, they're looking pretty rough. They gotta get water and we gotta get mulch on them, or maybe the bags. But I mean, I've put a couple in my yard that were basically the same trees and they make those look sick, but I got mine watered and I mulch them. And that makes a huge difference.
Well, a big difference is the soil. The
Well,
out
soil
there
too,
is
yes.
Very
But
dry.
they're dry all,
sandy-
yeah.
Dry, sandy soil.
If you mulch them and you give them the proper water, they'll grow. That's all I have.
I wanted to bring up a couple of things. One, I think we need to do some planning. We've got to update our recreation plan, and apparently QPAD is going to help us with that. So we need to think about the Iron Bell Trail, the non-motorized trail that's going to go across the UP. I think we want to become part of that. I think everyone has to start thinking about that. I brought this up with the recreation department, but that certainly has to be included in our recreation plan. And another project that has been near to my heart, or dear to my heart, is Norway Hill. The city owns a fair amount of land, old Keweenaw land, up on Norway Hill. I think that that needs to be turned into a park. It's not good for housing up there. And Mr. Carlson has mentioned about possibly getting some mountain bikers involved with that. So I thought that maybe the council, recreation department, or any other concerned citizens would want to get together and go look at that area. I think it should become a dedicated park. It's in the geographic center of the city. It's beautiful land. There's beautiful trees up there. I guess it all didn't burn down after the 4th of July. And so tentatively on August 2nd, at 9 a.m., if anyone's interested in going to look at the area, I'd like to go look at the big spring with people, the Bat Caves, Picnic Hill, and potential for trails up in there so we can see about developing. Marcia has mentioned in the past you'd be in Tuesday morning, August 2nd at 9 a.m. Up
Can we
on the
do
top
later that
of the
week?
hill. Straight up on top of Main Street.
I'd like to go up to that patio. Doc, can you do it later that week? 'Cause that's the week I'm gonna be gone out of town for a thing. Could you do like Thursday?
Or we could maybe, how about the next Tuesday, the 9th?
I'll be in
How
football.
about in the evening then? Why not in the evening?
Yeah?
Well, we still got plenty of daylight, 4 or 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock to head out.
Well,
Hell,
Thursday.
we could go right now.
Well,
I won't be around it because the bats are coming out and I don't want to be around that.
You and my wife.
Well, Thursday evening sounds reasonable to me, afternoon.
It doesn't really make a difference to me, Doc. I'll try to make it whenever it is.
Are you interested in going?
Thursday afternoon. I'm interested in going up there. I'd like to see what we got up there.
Good, so why don't we decide in
The 4th.
the 4th?
4th, okay.
6, 5?
5 o'clock?
Yeah.
Morning or evening?
It's light at 5 a.m.
I know.
We ought to go then.
I don't think you were thinking of 5 a.m. were you?
So make it Thursday, August 4th at 5 p.m. up at the top of the hill.
Talking up at where the gate is there?
Yeah. Just a place to park cars. Someone's mowed the grass up there. I don't know if that's the city or the
City goes up there.
mows the grass because it looks real nice. Any other comments, Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, I got a couple. What Mark was asking me was, in the memo, I had just notified everybody that I got a request from the township, because we're in this joint compost facility, that they also are interested potentially in the recycling. And if we do that, my recommendation was to then just move the recycling bins out to you know, into the same area. We're gonna have cameras. I'm working on we'll get quotes for cameras, for a number of different areas, so we'd have the cameras out there, and that would put the bins out there so everybody goes to the same place. They would pay half the dumping, you know, cost for that, so, if there's any objection to it, then let me know, otherwise I'm just gonna go ahead and give them the costs. And I do have an agreement, in front of them right now. I would, just revise that to include the recycling.
Are they interested in sharing the recycling with them left here? I know it's in 2 different sites, but I think once you get used to start bringing stuff that's not compost out there, it might get out of control in a quick hurry.
Well, we're gonna have a lot of room out there because under the permitting requirements, we're gonna need to be moving that compost, and we're gonna be taking it up to the transfer station. So we're gonna have a lot of room out there.
I'm not worried about room, I'm worried about when they start dragging stuff out there besides compost, whether it's containers or whatever. I think it could potentially get out of control on us. I would like to see them share it over here, because it seems like I use it quite a bit, and I kind of watch over that area somewhat when I come to town, and I don't think we got a real big problem in it. I got a bad feeling if you start hauling stuff out there besides compost, you're gonna get more than you bargained for.
Okay. I mean, it doesn't matter, either way.
Do you think they're interested in this site?
Yeah.
Sharing over
I
here?
think they're fine over here too. I don't think that matters to them. I just thought of consolidating at the same location, but they're fine coming.
Especially if you're gonna have someone, are you gonna have an employee there at any time, or just cameras?
Well, cameras, and then we'll have the, out there. Right now, we're just talking about cameras. And we're
So
saying
it'd
if
be
until
one
there's a
camera
problem.
instead of 2?
There'll be
or-
2 cameras. There's one on the road, and there's gonna be one in the
And then one
interior.
camera here, so.
There'll be one or 2 here, depending on how we can catch the views. So both will have the cameras, you know, to check it out. That was mainly for information, you know, to see if you had any issue with it, otherwise we'll move forward. The other was, I just gave you some numbers on the dumpsters. Typically, we do spring and fall cleanup. When we stopped curbside, we had it over here at the DPW, or we have it at the DPW. The first year, we put the dumpsters out for about 6 weeks, a couple Saturdays, and then in the fall, same thing. As of late, they pretty much have been there all summer. The difference is about between $4,000 and $8,000, so it doubled the price by doing it. I just want to make sure you guys were aware of that by us leaving it. If you know, if you want to leave it, we can definitely leave it, and just, you know, we put it out in the spring and pick it up in the fall. But that number is roughly a 2-year number, so that's pretty good, solid number.
Have there been any issues there, Ray, as far as people dropping off stuff they shouldn't be?
Yeah,
And the cameras will take care of that.
yeah, they'll help, definitely. Tires is the worst. We do get some other hazardous type material, but mostly it's tires. Yeah, and we think they're flipping them over the fence. We don't think that they're driving in when we're there.
Oh,
So, maybe I gotta make him move it a little farther away from the fence, but, you know, that's a cost that we cover, and, you know, it's a great benefit. It's a fantastic benefit, but
It's
I
a
just
good
want.
benefit, and it keeps the garbage from people throwing the stuff elsewhere.
oh, yeah.
What is the difference, price-wise? Maybe you don't even know this, but that difference in the dumpster versus what we paid dumping fees plus curbside pickup?
Oh,
Is it,
we did that about.
curbside was quite a bit more.
Yeah, it's because you got all the
So
labor
we're still
involved.
saving
Yeah,
money
you're still
with
saving
leaving
money.
the dumpsters there.
Oh, yeah, there's no question about it, that you're saving money. Yeah, that was quite an effort, doing the curbside. Plus, you know, it only covers a couple
2
weeks.
Yeah.
And people aren't always ready, you know, when we said we were going, and then they didn't get into their garage or wherever. So having it there for that length of time is a definite benefit. You know, it's a good service.
And you know, you may wind up with an extra can at quite a few houses. They might space that stuff that they're throwing out over a month period, a can a week, versus we wouldn't have to handle it if they throw it in over there.
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody, though, that the difference between rubbish and refuse.
Yeah.
Rubbish is the, you know, the projects and the stuff coming out of your garage. Refuse is their kitchen waste, and we don't want refuse in there because we don't know when we're gonna pick it up.
Yep.
And so if you throw banana peels and everything else in there, yeah, it's gonna be nasty, so don't do that. That's not what's supposed to go in there. So, the last thing I have is, the recreation survey. Doc mentioned it. We're going through, QPAD is, working on a 5-year rec plan update for a number of communities. They're consolidating it all, in one, effort, not costing us anything to have them do that. So, we're 2 years away from having to do it ourselves, so I had them just go ahead and do that for us. One of the things you're going to see is that we have a Parks and Rec survey that was put together. You can see it out online right now on our webpage. There's a link. It's a SurveyMonkey link, yeah, so you can take it right now. I'm going to have something in the next bill stuffer giving you the link again and reminding you, or if you don't use a computer, you can get a copy, paper copy here at City Hall and just deliver it back to the desk. We're not tabulating them, we're just going to collect them and send them down to Escanaba, down to QPAD. So I think that's a tremendous benefit for having them do that for us. So, and it's a pretty good survey, pretty comprehensive, so we'll get a good idea, hopefully, of different demographic groups and how they use our parks. So take a look at it if you get a chance, take it, and you know, let me know what you think. So, and then congrats on the 11-year-olds.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's excellent.
The kids are excited.
That's it.
Mr. Carlson, any questions or comments?
No, thank you, Mayor.
For that, we need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Support.
Mrs. Brule,
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Solar up by my house, I got prime spot facing.